So this is my how to beat hand control. So just some tips and just some ideas, some stuff that I think about and take into account when I think about hand control, you know, because it is a thing. So especially I've been noticing Bandai, a lot of the newer cards have hand discarding abilities or hand warping abilities or something similar, you know, something along those lines, or take a card from the hand, you know, bottom deck or something. So since there's some more hand control cards being brought into the game, it's very important to have the knowledge and experience to deal with it. Because if you don't have a plan or don't know how to use some of the cards you already have in your deck to help you combat hand control or hand destruction, then it will hurt you. It will put you in a bad situation if you're not using your cards right. Like a quick little example would be like Gotenks, right? He has the -2 ability that lets you draw 2 cards. That's good. But if you are not thinking of doing that, because typically when I use this, I mainly use it for its -3, not really its -2, but against hand control I definitely use the -2. But when I'm not going up against hand control, I mainly use the -3, which is choose up to 2 of my opponent's battle cards, ignore and barrier, and bottom deck them. So clearing my opponent's board is my go-to strategy with this card. But I've been in scenarios where my opponent was, you know, rebrand and stuff like that, was doing some hand control, and I use this to plus the leader swing to combat the hand control. Another thing is leaders that untap 2 energies. I mean, untap 2, draws 2 cards when you awaken. Like by awakening, you draw 2 cards, right? So that's an old trick people used to do against Cell Chain, where after Cell Chain, you get hit by Cell Chain. Same thing would apply if you were hit by Gogeta 7. You know, the 7-drop Gogeta. You would awaken, so that way you can, you know, add cards to your hands after those effects. It's just like, it's not too different from that same concept. You could also use against, what's his name, Android 17 Turning the Tides. I'll add Android 17 Turning the Tides as part of a hand destruction thing you should prepare yourself for. So that's why a leader that you know, awakens and draws 2 is very useful in those situations. So you should take that to account, because sometimes some people might not play a draw 2 awaken leader and choose a untapped 2 energy leader, just because, you know, they like the idea of untapping energy. So that way they could probably play 1 extra card, and that's about it. That's the only real reason they choose. But logically, especially in a hand control meta, right, you might want to choose to draw 2 instead, especially if the untapped 2 energy is not part of like a super, you know, combo, like a part of a combo play where you need the ability to untap energy because you're trying to do some big play. So if it's not, so untapping 2 energy, if it's not part of your, like, some type of combo in your deck, like a really powerful, you know, game-ending combo, then play a leader that you know, draws 2 when they awaken, you know, in this, you know, in a hand destruction meta. Another thing would be just leaders that just in general lets you draw 2. It's always interesting to see a leader that says, hey, draw 2 cards. It's like, oh, that's cool. So Bomo, for example, when she's awakened, you draw 2 cards. So that right there is helpful. And then combine her with you know, any unison that has the ability to draw cards, right? Just any unison that +1 draws. So her and that, so you're drawing 3 cards every turn. That's helpful. Of course, playing battle cards that when you play them, you draw, like this Android 18. You know, people mainly play it because you play it, you draw 2. So she's a +1. You know, this Kefla is really nice, especially if there's a way to cheat her out in the KO deck, and this will definitely be useful if you play the KO deck, because she has the ability that active main once per turn, draw 2 cards. Right, and then at the start of your opponent's next turn, you know, untap 2 of your energies and switch them to active mode. Blue energy specifically, but you get the point. So the fact that she draws 2, and then if you have it, like I said, a unison that draws a card, and the leader then the leader draws a card, so you can be getting 4 cards a turn that can help you combat hand control. Even using cards that have offering, because most people don't take the crit damage. They'd be like, oh, yeah, go ahead, draw 2 cards. That would be useful. So using cards that have offerings, you can take advantage of the fact that people typically let you draw 2 cards. So they just become draw 2. You play them, draw 2. That's essentially what you do with them. Now, if they take the crit, that'd be interesting. And, of course, you can exploit that and try to take advantage of that. There was something somebody said that I said. I don't remember saying it, but I probably did. But I don't remember saying that the best way to fight hand control is with hand control. I agree with the concept. I just don't remember saying it. But I probably did say it. Like if you can't beat them, join them type of thing. So if you can't, try to hand control them. Because what I do when I play, I do try to do a form of hand control. Like it's hand control through action. Like I've mentioned before, don't combo offensively, combo defensively. But if you do combo offensively, do it with the intention that your opponent's going to out combo. So you're doing it to force them to combo out. And there was like I had a gameplay at one point where I was like, look, I'm gonna combo this, and you're gonna see them, try to out combo it, which is good because notice how quickly their hand went from big to small just because I comboed like 1 or 2 cards from my hand, and their hand drastically reduced, which is what I wanted. Which is the only reason why I comboed, was to get them to out combo my attack, so that way the hands get smaller, so I could take advantage of that. So I think I had a Topo or something, so I was trying to combine those two. Speaking of a Topo, right? Like I said, do a form of hand control. Either literally use effects that will make them lose cards, like Topo, Gohan, Baby's Minion. These things will help, cause them to lose cards from the hands. Of course, if you have cards that, or Unisons that have effects that says, your opponent discards a card or warp a card, something like that, it's not bad to incorporate those types of Unisons, right? Because let's say you're not playing green hand control, but you're playing like maybe green aggro, but still play like a Unison at least that has a effect to like, make your opponent discard or warp a card from the hand. That way you kind of have a way to combat. Obviously, your leader should draw, right? You should play some cards that let you draw, like some battle cards, right? Maybe super combos that let you draw, right? And then use the Unison's effect to make your opponent discard a card. Like I said, in general, like something like Topo is very splashable in many decks. As long as you can charge 1 red, you can always Topo, which can essentially hand destroy your opponent. So yes, in that regards, the best way to beat hand control is to hand control them, right? Make them lose the cards that they need to make you lose cards, right? But like I was saying, drawing cards like this leader, you discard a red or yellow card and then draw 2 cards. So the ability to turn 1 card into 2 has its benefits. I like the little 4-star ball engine, because this is just good in general, because you can splash this in any deck. And the 4-star balls is always good to have in your hands, because if your opponent makes you discard, just discard the 4-star balls. Then use the Goku to add them back to your hand, so you never minus. Another thing is having cards that work in the drop area, like Frieza. You don't care if your opponent makes you discard this, because you can always get it back from the drop. Same thing as any of the graveyard negates. Those were always good. Those were always like, oh, that's awesome, because if my opponent makes me discard them, I still can use them. So there's that. Being able to play stuff for free. The sooner you can put your hand onto the board, the better, because one, that's good against Enter 17, Turn the Tide, right? Or any thing similar to that. Hand destruction, of course, because if you have no hands, your opponent can't destroy your hands, right? I recently made a meme about that, using Cell. The whole can't lose to hand destruction if you have no hands, right? So stuff like Bodyguard Leche, you can play them for free. Nappa, you combo, you play them for free. So using stuff like this can help you put stuff on the board, so you can at least fight back and not be at a disadvantage because your opponent is making you discard cards from your hand. So playing your hands faster is one strategy to counter the negative effects of hand destruction, right? Drawing a lot of cards can help you counter, and you know, stuff like that. Having something that that you can discard on purpose because you don't care, because you can always get it back. So any cards that have effects that can be added from the drop back to your hand is always nice, or at least that they work in the drop, so you don't care if they get sent there. Again, like I said, anything that lets you draw, like we got some, you know, some draw unisons. There's some battle cards that let you draw and stuff like that. And leaders awakening, draw 2 when you awaken. Things like that, you know, are things you should take into account and think about when you, you know, when you build your deck, because you have to consider that it could be a possibility. Even if, you know, you don't hear a lot of people playing, you know, hand destruction and stuff like that, you should still consider playing cards that can help you against that strategy in case it does. Because I know a lot of meta players, a lot of competitive players like to just focus on the meta, you know, just focus on what people are playing as opposed to what somebody could play. But I always take rogue, as they say, to account. It's like, if I went to an event, I'm not going to assume everybody's playing meta all the time. There could be some people playing rogue or anti-meta or something like that, right? So the likelihood of somebody playing hand control or something like that when no one else is highly likely. And I'd rather not be in a scenario where I go up against hand control, for example, and not be prepared, or at least have some way of dealing with it, either through experience or through actually having cards in my deck that can help me combat hand control, like, you know, the 4-star ball engine, for example, you know, or just have enough cheap cards and free plays that I can, you know, just drop my hand real quick and, you know, at least get stuff on the boards that I can use to play before my opponent, you know, just starts trying to rip every card out of my hand. Another thing is the idea, because I've done this before. Because I went up against hand control with my Hatchier deck. So what I had to do strategically, one, it was unfortunate I didn't have this. I was like, man, if I drew that would have made a huge difference against that matchup, because, you know, the ability to draw from this would have came in handy against the hand control. But what I did do was take advantage of the fact that I had the Dr. Leche Spirit of the Part of Spirit, a blocker that I could play from my drop area over and over again, right? And take advantage of that as my defense. Instead of relying on my negates in my hands to protect me, I was using the blockers from my drop area to protect me, which is why I'm using this as an example, because, you know, this is a generic blue one that could be played in any deck. The Dr. Leche is a black card, but it can't be used in any deck because you need a machine mutant leader specifically for it. But this is a, you know, at least a blue or a splashable in a deck that can produce at least one blue to play this. And this is something you can, you know, use. I tend to use this to combo, like I'll combo it defensively, like to stop an attack, like a leader swing or something. And then, you know, whenever I need it, grab it from the drop, you know, play it, and now I have a barrier blocker. And then it's a 20k body. There's a lot of benefits to this card. This is definitely something I always consider, like, oh, this is good against, you know, hand control or mill. That's another thing, mill, right? Cards that work in the drop is useful against decks that have mill. So that's why I use Frieza. That's why I use All Too Easy, because if my opponent is milling me or hand destroying me, these cards are still useful. So I still have, you know, a blocker. So I still have defense. So I have a fighting chance. I'm not defenseless just because my hand has been ripped apart, right? And then drawing through leader swings and battle cards and unisons are other ways that I can combat hand destruction. And that's the end of the video.